All right, so we're looking at part 2 now, and what we're going to be looking at in this video is actually completing out the calls from our web page that we've already, we put the recaption, so the app check and everything else, our attestation is all in there. And actually now we are going to make the call from our web page into our actual Firebase functions and our single function that we have right now. Remember, this function that we're going to be calling, it's an onCall, not an onRequest, right? So keep that in mind when you just look at the default code that's often produced from the Firebase initialization scripts. Remember, that's going to be changed when you do the attestation to an onCall as opposed to onRequest. But this is the flow that we're going to complete through, or really complete the walkthrough in this video. So let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, so here we are looking at our actual Firebase server-side function, right? Not too terribly much really going on. First off, a lot of you may be used to seeing some of the default code, right? HTTP requests that you put together. Obviously, we're not using that. We are clearly working with on-call functions. Now, remember, it's important that when we're talking about attestation in Firebase, on request, you're not going to get the security that you'd be looking for anyways, right? So here, we're using the on-call. Now, in addition to this, we also want to import one additional import so we can actually return an error when something happens. We'll talk more about this in a second. The logger, it's just convenient to go and see something in our Firebase console. Now here, we've defined a type as on-call, and you can see here that we have the automation call. And if you recall from earlier in our client-side code, when we passed in the string for the name of the function that we were going to be calling, this is what it has to match up against, right? And if you recall, we had automation call, right? Same, camel case, everything else. Now here, there's an opportunity for us on the on-call to say, hey, these are the maximum number of instances that will get spun up. This can really help protect you if you do start getting denial of service attacks or whatever else. This is going to save you a lot of money from just spinning up out of control calls. Now again, this is going to be hyper mitigated with the attestation, right? But nothing's 100%, so it's always good to have something in there. Now, one of the things I just want to kind of put in here so we can talk a little bit more about a little bit of kind of protecting your Firebase resources as well is, right, even though we are just simply logging stuff and returning, down here, you could be calling into, who knows what, your Firestore or any number of things, right? So you want to make certain that you capture stuff pretty early on. So what I'm going to do here just really quick is I'm just going to put in, a real simple kind of, verifier kind of function down here, right? Nothing spectacular. Obviously down here, you can go in and you can make this whatever you want for regex or anything else. I'm also going to change the type to a string, and it just returns a Boolean, right? So up here, just really quick, we're going to put in some code, and we're just looking at that, right? So we can say, invalid, whatever, right? So that way we don't get charged for a bunch of calls into our Firebase infrastructure. Now this is all well and good. This is about as standard as a function call that you could ever, possibly make. But what we are focusing in on is our attestation and our app check. So we need to do a couple of things with our function. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to enforce the app check. Right, that's the first thing that we're going to do. Now, this function, if anybody calls it without passing the attestation check, it's gonna fail. And that's just the function call. It's not even getting into anything else. The client will just get a permission denied. Now, one of the other things we are going to do is consume the AppCheck token as well. And so this way, if someone is trying to conduct a denial of service attack, if they do get a hold of one of the tokens at some point, if they've hacked into whatever attestation infrastructure, as soon as they make one call, they're going to have to go through and figure out how to get a new token and everything else. And if you recall, we'll go ahead and just take a look back here really quick. Here on our client side, if you remember, is token auth refresh enabled set to true? We need to make absolutely certain that this is set to true on our client so that when our function call on the server is enforcing the app check, that the token is actually refreshed. And that's exactly what we're enforcing here. So if you didn't have that set up on the client and you set this up on the server, you'd never get anything called correctly. So from a server-side perspective, this is all that you need to protect your Firebase functions with attestation to make certain that your function call is only being called from your web page. This is all that you need. We'll go ahead and just take a look at that here in a second. All right, so really quick, what I want to do is show you one of the most annoying things on the planet when you're dealing with the attestation stuff on Firebase, right? So everything's set up, and if you read all the documentation, it's going to tell you everything is perfect. It will just work, just do it. And then you wind up with this, right? It's the most obnoxious thing in the world. When you go into the logs, this is the primary one where you see the permission on the Firebase, right? And reading into this, you can see that denied to resource, right? The resource may not exist. It does, but it's just the most annoying thing in the world. And it's trivial to fix, but it's annoying. So what you're going to need to do is you're actually going to need to come back into your GCP console, make certain that you have your the correct project selected. Just come over to the side. You're going to come down to IAM roles. Here we go. Come in here, IAM. And here what you're going to see is you're going to see your developer. You're going to see your service account, right? This is your project number, whatever. Within this service account, you need to add in an extra role. So just come over here onto the edit. Go ahead and click on that, and you're going to add another role. And for this role, the only thing that you need to add is, so here, all you need to do is Firebase AppCheck Token Verifier, okay? That's the permission that you're going to want to add to your service account. Add that, and again, just make sure it's that service account. And by the way, if there's anybody from the Firebase team watching, please fix this. When you select to activate AppCheck in Firebase console, please add in the appropriate roles for this, so it's not so incredibly annoying if anybody from the Firebase team is watching this. But anyways, that's all you need to do. Go ahead and click Save. It's updating the policy. It may take a couple minutes for the policy to update, but it's pretty likely you'll be able to just go in and run your client-side app again almost immediately. All right, so after a couple minutes, go ahead and just bring your stuff back up. Let's say, whatever. Right, so now we're just gonna go ahead and run it again. And everything went through, right? So now what we have is we have our setup configured where our backend for our functions is secure with our front end via the attestation, verifying everything, right? So you're only going to be able to call your functions, your Firebase functions from this particular client, right? So we've got that initial pipeline secure. And now what we're going to do is now we're going to start talking about how we actually execute our N8N webhooks securely from our back end. And again, there's more than just simply calling our webhook the Firebase functions, there's more to it that we're going to put in security within our N8N webhook as well. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that now. All right, so we took a look, saw pretty much, everything from the Firebase side of things, walking through calling our app or calling our backend function from our web app, right? And everything went through. We talked about some of the parameters. And remember, with the app check, the fun additional role that you may run into from time to time to have to get that service role. So just make certain that you're paying attention to that. But otherwise, you should be good to go with everything. And having this more secure pipeline from your web app to your backend cloud function is going to give you that that confidence to call your N8N from your actual cloud function, right? This is going to give you some protection right off the bat. But what we're also going to be doing, and this is what we're going to be doing in the next video, is looking at other ways to secure or really better secure the N8N webhook endpoint, regardless of the fact that it's coming from a backend cloud function that we've gotten a high confidence of the client being verified. Having the security through obscurity, somebody can find the URL to your N8N webhook. So we want to make certain that we mitigate that as much as possible. And that's what we'll be looking at in the next video. All right, so we'll see everybody there in part 3 of this. Take care, everyone.